college and university planning, known as SCUP, has changed considerably since the pandemic started. As president, Mike Moss has led significant changes internally in how the team is managed and communicates and measures success, as well as externally in how the association engages its members. Mike, welcome to the show. Welcome to Save the Associations.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
Let's start with outcomes first. What are 3 stats which best describe the association's current success and are the direct result of a change in SCUP strategy during this past year?
So I think the most important grounding to the 3 stats is that when the pandemic hit, we were faced with the same crisis as all associations, financially, everything. And the board and the senior staff immediately began a strategic acceleration process. As opposed to a retrenchment or a pivot, we really leaned into our plan. And as a result, the 3 things I think that have come out over the last year is some really intentional strategy development, an improved governance process, and most exciting probably for the work that we've done together is the largest segment of our membership right now are folks with 0 to 3 years of membership experience. So we've been able to retain some of the newest members, grow new members, and also retain our long-term members. So those with 10 plus years of experience in the association are also still with us as we come into the 1-year mark of disruption, which leads us to a lot of exciting programming that we've been able to do to start those moments of transferable skills and shared experiences, which of course will strengthen the member experience.
So 0 to 3 years of experience, that's amazing and quite a shift, right? From what SCUP used to be at?
Correct. We are an experienced bunch. In the planning community, and we've been a very successful and well managed community for over 56 years, and our membership certainly reflected that experience. I think we all know that the generational shifts and the need to address our membership models, our engagement models is upon us, and with that acceleration that we were able to do in our strategy development, it's resonated. Of course, the biggest task ahead of us is keeping that momentum, keeping that retention of those new audiences, and not at the point of alienating our long-term supporters. So that's the awesome balance that we have as we enter 2021 is we're moving into the design that we imagined a couple of years ago when we wrote the plan faster than we expected to.
So something that's really unique about your leadership, I think, is that you've developed a lot of metrics and dashboards internally to keep your team really well informed and working collaboratively. So explain for our audience what you measured during this time and how.
So we'll start with internally. So we all shifted to online meetings. We all pivoted to huddles and town halls and all the structures that you can to keep people engaged. But what was most important for us was what are the metrics that we're showing internally to help understand impact, opportunity, and acceleration. So immediately started having team huddles where we exposed all finances, all impact, and all opportunity. And what we mean by all opportunity is that despite a significant shift from being an event-centric company to being something else in the future with events, that had an immediate financial effect, and it bore opportunities to really lean into our learning programs, our learning strategies, and of course, our engagement strategies. So with the negative came the positive, and then those positive, we run a holacracy where teams are formed based on your roles and skill sets, not necessarily your titles and expertise. Your expertise comes in, not your title. So with that, we were able to form sprint teams that could form new product, could enhance existing product, certainly pivot us to a virtual environment exclusively. So in those moments, sometimes it looked like the normal events team, and other times it was a whole new entity looking at corporate sustaining partners, or how do we develop peer-to-peer engagement when we haven't ever had that. So I think compared to some of my colleagues, we were certainly in catch-up mode when it came to running some traditional engagement vehicles. And for our audience, it also was a change because the dashboards that we have out of our software now shows that the member response, not our intuition. So while some of the products and strategies were developed off of aspiration and intuition, they're now supported by data dashboards that show member response, community response. And from there, we make our adjustments moving forward.
So you just said a whole lot of really fascinating information that, about 5 things you just said could be segmented out into like courses or separate interviews. But the move to holacracy, that is unique for your organization. We are doing the same. We like to call it holacracy. And of course, the shift to not be so events focused. So many associations are grappling with that right now. So I'm curious, how has the decision to be strategic internally and measure your progress and be very intentional about that, how has that positively impacted the association overall?
I think it's starting with the board, right? So overall, the board, I was blessed to have a strategic focus board coming into crisis, not one that was wedded down into operations. So I'll take that blessing, and off of that, the maturation of moving towards a generative board was accelerated. So what we did is we set up a series of retreat sprints. Normally we have a retreat schedule, as we all do, where we go to a place, we do some stuff, and then we come back. And what we've done instead is unpack that into a series of sprints where the board focused on one goal and a set of strategies exclusively. So last fall, we focused on learning. Right now in the spring, we're focused on engagement. And then this summer, we move all those into how does that affect value and partnerships. So as we do those sprints, the external results are we have, I think, a much improved conversation with our units or components. So we have a better understanding at all staff levels of how to explain strategic direction because of the dashboards and the internal conversations and the huddles. We have a better opportunity for board members to support the units and understanding where their trials and tribulations are in terms of running a local and having to shift their behaviors to online and elsewhere. And then I think most importantly, we've changed our message in higher ed because despite the acceleration, we became hyper-focused. And what I mean by hyper-focused is we have as planners, there are a million really important things that we need to plan on campus. There's no doubt we have to be in every inch of the academy. So that brings up a multitude of planning disciplines that we absolutely should focus on, especially as we profess integrated planning being the solution. That said, there's 3 areas of focus. And those are the only 3 areas of focus that came out of the content strategy. And with that discipline, we've been able to ramp up more focused webinars, more focused conversations, more focused learning vehicles to those 3 areas of what we believe from our members' voice to be the most important areas of planning, at least for 2021, but most likely all the way through 2030, which is our planning horizon.
Fantastic. So you're kind of coupling the sprint mentality with that long-term 2030 mentality and doing both simultaneously. That's fantastic. So let's shift and talk a little bit about external strategy. Let's talk about membership and membership engagement. So what strategies has SCUP deployed in this past year to re-engage your members?
It starts with communication and then it ends with communication. So we've gotten much better at actually communicating with our members in a non-invasive way and being responsive to the moments when we hear back in pretty strong ways that we've interfered with their flow, that yes, I've heard you enough. So we've made several adjustments just over the last even 8 months to how often and in what ways we contact the members. Our marketing department has done an amazing job of getting very good at 2 communications a week that are focused, actionable, and on target to the member response that's required. So I think the thematic thing that we did as it relates to the membership strategy to your question is that we met the members where they are, not where we thought they should be or where they might be in the future. We just met them where they are. Our industry was obviously severely impacted by the pandemic when we had to send all the students home and massive revenue streams disappeared from all campuses. All those impacts on our industry were significant. Recognizing that the majority of our members were head down and solving and most importantly, taking care of the safety of students and faculty and administrators was not a great time to be launching product or otherwise asking and reminding them to give us money. So we made some adjustments. We slid the renewal calendar by 3 months. We gave everybody opportunities to breathe before they had to respond. And so all those strategies, I think micro strategies together led to a much better understanding really of the flow of our membership, what they needed when they needed it. And that's where we could intersect with both content and communication. From that, we've launched 4 new membership products that actually put peer-to-peer engagement as the primary vehicle. You've already paid your dues. Here's some stuff to get you into the community to talk with one another. You are the problem solvers. You are the ones that will transform higher ed. So let's get you talking and we'll intersect that with the content when you need it. So those were some of the strategies that we used. The products aside, the most important strategy was, I think we did a better job of listening. and a better job of responding based on what we heard, not what we thought they needed. We got out of our own way.
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, you actually did a listening tour, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I spend an exorbitant amount of time on Zoom, so I totally get the Zoom fatigue thing, but that's basically our phone calls now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've had an opportunity to really do a lot of connecting with members, both hyper engaged and those who we don't really hear from, because there's amazing stories to be told. And out of that, we actually launched an incubator. So we've developed an innovation hub because of those conversations, because of what we've discovered. There is some amazing work being done. It's just not standard practice. But those are the most important stories that we are bringing into the membership. So we've opened up some channels. Again, these are member-only opportunities, dues-supported resources that come in to connect into the ideation, the experimentation, and the failures that are part of higher ed's future, because with those failures comes great success. And so we're trying to capture those. We're doing short mode content, getting people connected through that content. And I think that was all born from a listening tour. The listening tour was, where are you and where do you aspire to be based on current state? And that's what they needed to learn more. The members needed to see more opportunities to engage with one another through SCUP, through our content, but also in a way that was a safe harbor to share what worked, what didn't, and why.
So you mentioned that you're seeing an increase in members with just 0 to 3 years of experience, so those early careerists. What else have you observed as outcomes as a result of changing that membership engagement, outreach, and that strategy?
Well, it's changed the way that the membership committee works, and they drove it. So they heard from us what we aspired to be. We worked with them through our staff, representatives and liaisons to the committee, and then they took it in a direction that, honestly, if we paid them, they wouldn't have been able to do this. It was amazing. They knew the market, they know their peers, and they helped create an emerging leader program that launches this month in April. They've created conversational circles that connect their peers with one another around emerging topics, not just established content. And they've taken ownership of renewal. And so the peer-to-peer network of renewal was driven by our membership committee, driven by our volunteers, all just born from a strategy of, let's get to work. And let's get to work wasn't just sending more emails. It was the listening tour, understanding how people wanted to be connected. And the reason I think it rendered the 0 to 3 years of member experience as the kind of emerging group is that's also who's on the membership committee. There are some certainly longtime members there who understand the established practices of SCUP, but the majority of the committee has less than 5 years of experience in the organization. And so they're bringing in ideas and inspirations that were not currently or previously in the organization, and allowing that to have a kind of a green field, let them go, fail fast, fail cheap, fix it, has been, I think, a mentality of the engagement strategy that has allowed that committee to thrive. And I'm really actually looking forward to the fact when we have to put on the brakes because of their success. And that would be a brilliant problem to have. And I think it's coming because they're doing amazing work.
You've introduced a lot of new strategies in a really short period of time. For anyone in our audience who's been keeping count, I think we're up to like 8 or 10, something like that. So for those in our audience who might be thinking, wow, I'm struggling to make one change, out of all the changes, what's been the most effective? What one change would you recommend?
So I have to give credit to my colleague, Kelsey Finn, who taught me over the 5 years we've worked together in higher ed associations to be bold, be brave, and get to work. And it's on the whiteboard. It's been on the whiteboard for 14 months now behind me, is that that phrase has been something that has been embraced by our units, by our staff, and certainly as a mantra for strategy implementation. Being bold and brave isn't coming up with 100 things and trying to do them all. It's having, I think what's worked best for us is having a process by which we can develop, vet, grow, remove, stop, but having that happen quickly. I think our durable products are durable because they took a long time to develop and they've matured in the market. But where we are now is on the short mode content, the strategy that I would recommend all of us maybe try and experiment more with is that experimentation. Open up the peer-to-peer channels, let them talk, find out what's actually emerging in their world. It's not standard practice yet. It won't have learning outcomes. It won't necessarily support the 5 core competencies that you support in a credential, but that's where the industry's heading. And with that, opening up those channels certainly informs the more durable content, which is where we have new workshops and things that are emerging in SCUP, is from the opening up of the strategy of, so let's meet you where you are. What are you trying to do to solve these problems? And what didn't work and why? And from those, I think the durable products of learning outcomes and workshops and webinars and all those things will become more durable for all of us as we transition. Because I think, honestly, I don't care what industry you're in. What I've learned from Kelsey in particular, I mean, she really is one of my mentors, is it's okay for all of us at one time or another put our job on the line. Don't put the association on the line. And that's a hard thing to really unpack. And it took me a while to understand what she meant by that. But it's okay to every once in a while risk your job, but not in a way, of course, to support, risk the support of your family, but be bold. But be bold within the strategies and the goals with a data informed as much as you have. Be data informed and then see what works. And you have members who will support those movements. And I think that's what we've learned the most is find those members, have those conversations, let them be part of the experiment. And then when it works, grow it. And when it doesn't, just, okay, we'll try something else. That's what's, I think, the most effective for SCUP.
That's great. One thing you haven't mentioned, which I think bears noting, is that throughout all this process of change, SCUP has not only managed to draw in some new people, some younger people, expand programming and benefits and all of that, but you've also remained financially stable. And that is really, I think, a key point. And to close out our interview, I'm wondering if you could just share a little bit about that financial stability, how you achieved it, or anything else you think is important to note that has helped save your association.
Yeah, thank you. I think the first thing to note is that we're very proud of two things that we announced in the second week of the pandemic, which was we had two goals: keep the association moving and keep everyone employed. And we've been able to do that. That said, we've had to do some of the same adjustments that most associations have, where we've had temporary reductions in salary or some other provisions, but we never touched the most important things of healthcare or employment. And we've been able to keep the team with us throughout pandemic. And with that, I think we've had an opportunity to really grow and learn together because we've had to make some operational shifts. Obviously, we had to be very mindful of expenses, and we were very good at reading the data. And my whole team just deserves a million levels of kudos because they learned how to learn differently and how to work differently. And they did that together. It absolutely comes with days of stress and days of disagreement, but that's okay. Our culture was designed for disagreement, not conflict. And so I think I give huge credit to my colleagues for embracing those moments because it's been our opportunity to innovate. It was through disagreement, not from conflict. So the culture piece was huge. We are still in operating cash. We've been fortunate not to have to touch our reserves. And as we all have experienced with the market not understanding that we're in pandemic, our reserves have grown. So we now have some investment opportunities as we look to thrive in 21 into 22 that we just didn't even think we had coming into pandemic at all. We also have been blessed by the stimulus packages. We've taken advantage of those. But in doing so, we've been very mindful of how we can make investment, not just restrictions of expense. And so we have made investment into product, into our people. We've had 3 people promoted during the pandemic. They've jumped into new skill set levels. In one case, a person jumped completely into a job that we absolutely needed, and she just shifted basically her career, and she nailed it, and she's thriving. And she's a huge piece of our pandemic success because she was willing to be brave, be bold, and take on a whole new job. And I think those pieces are certainly something that I'm very proud of. We all say it, but I believe it. This is the best group of people I've ever worked with, and they've proven that over the last year.
Well, be brave and be bold. As is customary, we end these interviews with a celebratory dance. So please join me in some dancing. You have much to celebrate, and thank you for all you are doing to help save the associations.